Let's work our way through the parameter menus and see what this flow meter can do. We'll start with the Config submenu because everything else depends on how you configure the device. Fault on output 1 and fault on output 2 determine how outputs 1 and 2 will react in case of an error. You can have the output turn on or off in case of an error, or just leave it to do whatever the output was set up to do. Output 1 can also be a frequency output. In that case, you can set the output to go to 130% of the frequency you set. Go to no frequency, or don't do anything. For channel 2, which can also be an analog output, you can set it up to go to the lower error value, the upper error value, or do nothing. Be careful to make sure your equipment can handle the high and low error conditions before using this option. Not all equipment can automatically handle currents of more than 20 milliamps or greater than 10 volts. You can set a startup delay, choose if the digital output should behave as PMP or MPN, and set a damping constant in seconds to help smooth out results. DIS chooses how often the display is updated, 50, 200, or 600 milliseconds, and if you want to rotate the display 180 degrees in case you have to install the unit upside down. And Units sets the LED display to gallons per minute or gallons per hour if you're viewing the flow. SCLD selects what you want the default display to show: flow rate, total gallons, or temperature. SCL2 selects whether output 2 should represent flow or temperature. Remember, output 1 only outputs flow, so there is no SCL1 for this unit. LFC is the flow cutoff limit. This tells the sensor not to generate any outputs until the fluid flow rate is above this lower limit. That way you don't get a lot of false readings while the system's starting up or shutting down. You can tell the total to only count net forward fluid flow or the actual fluid flow. For example, if you choose the minus and plus sign, the totals displayed on the LED will follow the actual amount of fluid that has passed through the sensor, even if some of it's in the reverse direction. If you choose the 0 plus option, the total shown on the LED will always show you the max fluid that's passed by to date. It won't show you reduced totals if some of it's passed in the reverse direction. Now, it's important to understand that the analog output value will always reflect the correct amount of fluid that's passed by, even if there are periods of reverse flow. But the digital pulse output only recognizes positive fluid flow. For example, we would get pulses here during increasing volume, none during decreasing, and then we start getting pulses again once the volume passes its previous max. It tells you the net amount of fluid that's passed in the positive direction. This last parameter in the configuration window is the fluid direction. If you install the meter so that the flow is traveling against the direction shown on the side of the unit, then set this FDIR parameter to minus and attach the sticker that came with the unit. This parameter will make sure the displays and outputs take the correct flow direction into account. The memory submenu simply keeps track of the highest and lowest flow rates seen to date and the maximum and temperature seen to date. You can view those anytime and reset them by selecting them and pressing the up or down arrows. The EPD submenu is the empty pipe detection feature. You can turn it on or off and specify a delay time for the empty or full signal so it doesn't trip on an intermittent air bubble. You can view the current empty pipe value and set the trip point. Once enabled, if an empty pipe is detected, you'll see this in the LED display. We've already seen the simulation submenu in action, so we won't go over that again here. In the extended functions menu, you can also do a factory reset, and you can reset the gallons counter to 0 yourself, or tell the sensor to do it itself periodically in intervals of hours, days, or weeks. Back on the main submenu is where you control the behavior of the outputs. The top half is all output 1, the digital output on this unit, and the lower half is all output 2, the analog output on this unit. For output 1, if you select a hysteresis or a window function output, these become active. The hysteresis function turns the output on when the flow rate reaches SP1 and off when it falls below whatever you put in RP1. That way, if you have a process bouncing around this limit, you don't get a bunch of events. The window function activates the output between these two values. That's for when you need to make sure a process stays within certain limits. If you select a pulse output on output 1, then these two become active. IMPS is the volume. That's how many gallons you pass by for each pulse output. You can have a single pulse generated only the first time the meter reaches the total volume, or you can have a pulse generated every time that many gallons pass by. The diagnostic output sends the empty pipe detection to the output. This only works if the empty pipe feature we talked about a couple minutes ago is enabled. The signal will drop low if an empty pipe is detected. Finally, if we choose output 1 to be a frequency output, these two become available. In FEP, you put the max flow rate that you want to correlate with the max frequency that you put in here. Output 2 has the same window and hysteresis functionality. The set points are set in these two guys, and it has the same empty pipe diagnostic output ability as output 1. The ND parameter changes output 2 to an input, so it can be used to reset the gallons counter. When that's active, you can set how it works with this guy. Go active on a high, a low, leading edge, or falling edge. And if you just want an analog output, you can choose current or voltage. Everything we just did here was for the 1001 model flow meter, which has one digital and one analog output. The 1002 flow meter has two analog outputs. The first output is dedicated to temperature, so you can scale the min and max temperatures here. That is, you put the temperature that corresponds to 0 volts or 4 milliamps here, and the max temperature, which corresponds to 20 milliamps or 10 volts, here. Output 2 on the 1002 unit is dedicated to flow, so you put the min and the max values of the flow here. Otherwise, all the other parameters are pretty much the same as they were with the 1001 unit. If you have any questions, please contact Automation Direct's free, award-winning tech support during regular business hours. They'll be happy to help. And don't forget the forums. There are lots of folks there that love to share their years of experience. Just don't post any questions directed at Automation Direct support staff there. They don't monitor the forums on a regular basis.